Um, these messages get longer and longer every time.
Soon it'll have you sign like your understanding
Wait,
of
what
it.
did
Yeah.
it say?
Yeah,
I don't
What
know.
what did she say to
just
you?
clicked OK. It's all fine.
Yeah.
Same.
Oh, it comes up and it prompts you.
Like a
Yeah.
pop-up. Yeah.
Oh, I don't get that because I'm the one
Yeah,
Because
because you initiate it.
pushing it. Yeah.
You're the
Huh.
surveillance state.
I
You
guess
don't
I
need-
guess eventually it's gonna have like connect or disconnect. It's just gonna let you drop immediately if you
Yeah.
don't agree or something. I don't know.
If you
Or
don't
you
agree
just
to be
become a
monitored,
black
you can
box.
fuck off.
Or you become a
black
black
box.
box and every time you talk, either nothing comes out.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's
No, they
confidential.
they get the
witness
they get
protection
the right
filter.
to put whatever they want in when you're talking. They'll have a machine intelligence. Like Zoom is the best app I've ever been on.
Yeah, it's
This is
just
a great app.
advertisement.
all of this gets cut out and it's just us
Yeah.
repeating Zoom is the best app.
Yes.
That's great. We just figured out a like how Zoom will use all of this machine intelligence to basically turn Zoom into a giant ad for Zoom.
Well, totally expected.
Yeah,
Paperclip maximizers.
exactly.
Ouroboros Zoom maker.
Yeah, so the thing I was mentioning is Tyler, we met him in Mexico City for like a small business, I don't know, like indie business conference kind of thing.
Indie like startup, bootstrap
Yeah.
startup.
Bootstrap business conference thingy. And we've been talking to him off and on for I guess a year and change or so. But yeah, so he was coming through in Portland, and so we hung out and did a lot of Web3 chatter. Like I think he got involved with Bitcoin like pretty early days.
Yeah.
Like his cousin runs like the biggest Bitcoin ATM company.
Whoa.
So there's all kinds of stuff in there. And Tyler was like day trading and trading, degenerate trading, made some money that way, but that was his primary like introduction to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And like got a little burned out, I think, from the thing. And so
Yep.
we've been sort of talking about it's like I guess more fruitful cases than just I don't know, training horses and then gambling them into the ground or whatever it is. That's the new version.
We've been talking with him about the underlying technology
Yeah.
and like how it works. And like I don't think he even understood some of like the basic mechanics of like how blocks are minted and like how these, because like once you start feeling into like the patterning of, I don't think he had that sort of like look behind the curtain.
Yeah, we were able to give him fill him in some of the technical stuff, and then how that ties into the social dynamics. And so he likes to come up with businesses, and so
Yeah.
he's been sort of churning on this. And but anyways, the reason I bring this up is one of the things that popped up was like doing a sort of collaborative investment, like investment club or whatever, right? And we've talked about this in different like angles. And I remember Nancy mentioning that like she wants to put some money to work or whatever, and she should buy a house. And I'm like, no, everybody should put their money together and figure out different cooler ways to whatever. And there are a bunch of different instantiations on this, and I've been running into more and more of the models where there are VCs who are forming, like there's like a stack that's forming around this. There's a thing called Syndicate DAO that is starting to put tooling on these kinds of things. And and then there's the Gnosis Safe stuff and all that. There's a bunch of there is a something. This one seems the easiest to probably throw together. I don't know how easy, but what is your thesis then? So one of the things that we were talking about is like you can put a bunch of money in a pool and then choose to like degenerate gamble together. That's fine. That's one way to do it. But what are alternate like sort of investment thesi? And one of the things that came up was, okay, you can get a bunch of people together, sort of put money to work, like invest in parts of the ecosystem that you want to see. Some of those things can be speculative investments. And like one of the overall arching themes could be something like your DAO's universal basic income could be pegged to this kind of thing. So like, you are building this fund together so that more people can play in the DAO without having to worry about the money, right? And then, yeah, I don't know, like that as a system of like running a fund together versus like trying to make the maximum gains
Right.
possible or whatever, because then you're making decisions on like longer term investments. And anyways, it was an interesting sort of thought experiment. And like I would like to invest in a way where I could learn how to do that better, because that'd be nice. And yeah, anyways, it came up.
Also vetting investments too as a group. So
Yeah.
like
That too, yeah.
Yeah.
like Dave has been kind of doing this. So, we're talking about the graph. We're talking about the underlying technological, like how it works, where in the ecosystem it can be used. And he's like, yeah, this is like something that's probably going to be pretty fundamental. I'm going to put some money into it. So it's like the consensus, sort of bringing something to the group, sort of picking apart, like, okay, what is it? What does it do? Why would we invest in it? Yeah, I mean, that alone is
Collective
fun. I mean,
intelligence.
yeah, isn't this what research or like trading firms do? We were kind of like talking with him, like I was thinking about that. I was like, they've got whole research desks that look at this information, and everyone's like sort of trained and like keyed up to like take in the information, and then depending on the speed with which they're trading. But I don't know, democratize it. It's possible now.
Totally.
I really like this idea, especially I don't know, it's been kind of weird because I've had a lot of people recently come to me and be like, I want to give you money to invest. And I'm like, I don't quite feel like I want to do that, but I also at the same time, I'm like, I don't quite feel comfortable. But with a bigger group of people, that's not only my perspective, I think it would really be like a lot more interesting. And I've also been mentioning, like, I'm not really investing traditionally anymore. Like I have my traditional investments, but at this point, I'm not sinking more money into that because I don't think that's really where it makes
growth
sense.
is happening.
Yeah, it's just not the same level. Like there's so much more potential in the crypto market, and like how it's growing, the hype that's catching behind it, like the experiments that are being run with NFTs. I ran, I don't know if this was on Twitter or somewhere, but it said like I think it was on Twitter this morning. It's like to understand how to like invest in NFTs, you have to understand culture. And I'm like, holy shit, like that's totally true. And like the best understanding of culture is not really as an individual. That's again like a collective like intelligence thing, it seems like.
Yeah,
that's what culture is, people together. Sorry,
I have a quick story, but I don't want it to be on the record.
No.
I don't know if we can pause.
We can pause it.
Can we pause it? Cool. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of related to the loot stuff. Like, so you had that weapon builder concept or whatever, like these people who are trying to build like stuff for the metaverse, basically, like super rare or interesting or not interesting, whatever, like I guess items, and then tying it to something like the loot stuff where there are attributes, right? And those attributes have some sort of value, and all the game stuff and crazy shit that you can play there. I was thinking about this in terms of materials and the blockchain having inherent materiality and how you would express that materiality into a form that is moldable, like moldable, composable, like sculptable, right? So that like people who are, and this comes back to some of the stuff that we were talking about, John, with the like digital shrines and this kind of thing. So like if you, so John and I had a conversation, like sort of bouncing ideas around the concept of a digital shrine, and like what a small scale example of that would be is like I've been thinking about this and I can't remember what we talked about and what I've been drawing or whatever, but basically like an example of what I'm talking about is like a fountain, right? And this fountain can be made up of like material effectively. And like, so say the material is like some sort of stone and then water, right? And the stone and water would be attached to some blockchain, something, right? Some data stream, right? That or it could be attached to a contract that has like the necessity for interaction to keep it alive, right? So the water could definitely work that way. And the simplest version of this is that like if you throw like money into the fountain, dust, ether dust, then the water will still flow, right? Or something like this. And the water has inherent value, the stone has inherent value, it erodes or decays. There's a bunch of variables that you can use on the material stuff, tying it back into some chain information. So I'm not explaining this great, but generally, like if the weapons had something like this, it could have like some fire or whatever it is, and you know that material could be simulated from some data stream or something, and that data stream could have some economic value or be tied to some other thing. There's a chain of events that make these things living somehow, right?
Yeah.
There are better ideas around this, but generally that. And the one of the things that John and I were talking about is like you could build, or you could have like DAOs who like set aside some of their treasury, right, to create public sort of spaces and like, you know, a kind of a temple or a shrine or whatever. And there are certain activities within those spaces that like they could be economic or they could be reputational or they could be collaborative, that the thing will only stay alive as an entity or whatever it is. And living can be a bunch of things. Like this is where you could have a material that is like growth based. So like plants or something like this, the thing withers and dies if people haven't been there frequently, you know, these kinds of things. So anyways,
Or
I
get
don't
overgrown.
know. Or get overgrown because it's not being tended by a certain class. You know, you have priests that have to come in and do certain rites, and those rites are like this elaborate stupid thing that like, you know, you have to draw a picture of a sheep and then you have to hand that to another. You know, you could do very dumb like collective kinds of things like this, like pseudo religious activities that have a keep alive state or something. Anyways, the whole premise there though, I like it as a so I've moved over into the concept of like the blockchain having an inherent like materiality, right? And for what we're doing with like the relational OS stuff, it has properties that are like, call it, it's like paper somehow. The blocks are like the fundament of this thing, and when you interact with them, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna stop there. Just generally, that's where I've been thinking. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that helped me, like the material sense. So if something has a materiality, you can explain the materiality to people and
Yeah.
they'll understand what you can do with it. Like you don't have to tell them explicitly. So like we were talking about marketplaces. So if you're selling, like we were on the Silk Road for some reason, like where people are selling wares, and
Sure.
you know, at a time where things were new, someone might come through and you're like, okay, so I've got this kind of woven material. It's made out of these things. It has like these properties, and someone's like, oh, I could use that in the kitchen for this, or I might be able to combine that with this other thing and make a blanket for the bedroom. Like, so there, there's like the materiality, if it has, what's the word? Yeah, I don't, I'm blanking completely. Like a set of not principles, but
attributes, variables,
attributes. Yeah.
It's I guess like you saying like I can kind of see the mapping now between, like, I think the woven thing is like, oh, you can all of a sudden, like someone who has like a creative mind for that kind of thing, they're like, oh, this would be perfect, like especially if you work in a certain craft, you know, like this thing would be perfect for that craft.
Yeah.
I guess like for me, like the closest example I can think of that, like like I saw was like a surfboard shaper picking up a foam kickboard and being like, this would be a great thing to like sand foam down with. And you're like, okay, but it's just like this generic object, and like kind of like repurposing it for something, or like building upon what its maybe initial purpose was, if there was a purpose at all.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about the difference between like sort of Web 2 medias, like web pages and social media or whatever, and they have attributes and tendencies, and they are very good for like attentional based things or whatever. And maybe there's a difference in the Web3 medias in that they are inherently pass through rather than collect it. Like they don't collect and pool information. Like attention can move through to where it needs to go. And there's an inherent programmability of this flow management based on your example, Sharuz, is like indicative of this, like there's a thing, the community comes together like, oh, we can do it for this other thing. There's a Discord to move into. There's this, there's an inherent like movement and like ideation around this stuff. So, yeah, I don't know, like thinking about that as being part of the weave of the thing, right? So like like materials that are in alignment with that, developing out the properties of these things. It's like being a paper manufacturer or something, right? Like, and there's different needs, like in the film case, right? You have matte film, you have large scale film, you have like different, higher quality papers for specific, artistic needs, lower quality papers for lots of distribution, stuff that you're going to throw away. And those papers have like specific attributes that make them better or worse for things. We are adding a layer of relationality, interrelationality within the media. The media, like objects, have an understanding of where they sit within the broader context, which is a nature of that type of media. I don't know. I keep thinking about this thing and what the implications of this kind of stuff are. I don't know if it's too meta, but that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's sort of trying to sum up like, how do you explain to somebody how to build in Web3 rather than explaining what is Web3? Like giving them the source code in some sense and letting them like apply it to their own context. I think the relational, the transparency, I think both of those are, they make a lot of sense. For me, the things that like really stand out is the uniqueness and addressability. Like everything has an address that's unique. You can find it, you can hold on to it. Transactions are a like fixed thing that you can like, there was a thing, then something happened to the thing, then there was this new thing. You can like rewind as many times forwards and backwards as you need to understand it. And during each of those rewinds, you can explore a different layer of it, like whether a social layer or another social perspective or somebody else's perspective of the thing. But if everything is like mapped to each other, then you have this very like stable, transparent way to navigate through time and through like what happened around a set of things. But I definitely like the search for kind of a self-contained like thing that has properties. Like we in physics there's like we kind of realize like fluid dynamics are a thing, and just like anything you model in that way will just behave in that way. And you can we can't necessarily simulate everything, but we can like, once you kind of have that, you can reason about like the way water and clouds and like gases are going to like mix with each other. Yeah, what is that like for Web3? And I think that's a very good question. It probably is something around blocks, like this idea that blockchain, but then like the word blockchain is now such a like an electrifying trigger that you tell it to somebody, they're just like, they just come up with all these like questions and assumptions. It's like, no. You want to go more towards something that like extends, something that points to its past like ancestors in a very like consistent way, that contains a copy of every like past member of itself, something more towards that and away from like your entire history and everything you do is broadcast to the entire internet, because it's like not the thing that we want to like, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, there's I don't know, there's something to thinking through the lens of blockchain media, I guess. Like what is like the film is an internet or is a blockchain native media effectively, right? And so like we were coming up with versions of this thing that have like they naturally go with the flow of like publishing to chains. And yeah, I don't know if there's languaging around this that I'm looking to develop, or I think can be developed in concert with people, to help like sort of pinpoint what we're doing. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been thinking about like we talk about blockchain a lot, or like feel like we should, but then in Web 2 world, we're not really like, hey, check out these Lambda functions and Postgres, backends.
Yep.
Like they're implementation details, and like I think the application layer that like relates to somebody. In Web 2 world, that's what makes sense, because it's like, hey, here's this company, they built this awesome app or website, and go check it out. It lets you do this. With Web 3, like the material notion is really interesting, because that's what you're doing. You're building the fundamental kind of like materials of that world that then anybody else can use and craft things with. So yeah, it's interesting that I think like it might just be like the nature of how these things develop and catch public attention and understanding, is that you have to go through multiple waves of like, we're gonna try pitching it to the public through this way. And it's gonna go up, and then it's gonna go down because it just didn't resonate beyond like some local maximum.
Yeah.
And then the next wave, we figure it out a little bit better, and like it does seem like all of a sudden there's like cool apps and like relatable kind of things that are being built that aren't just like DeFi, or like they're not about like mine your liquidity pools or whatever. Like all that stuff is not relevant necessarily.
Yeah, I think that there is a moment where like the like moldable media nature of this thing catches, right? Like people who are creative in a way that is, I mean, a lot of the on-ramping is happening through NFTs, because like very creative people are like, what the fuck are these things? And like, all right, they're understanding what you can do with it. There's an economic component, there's this component, there's a gaming component, right? Yeah, for like, I think more like somebody who's making a printing press, like what are the large scale media toolings that, or small little game mechanics that go into making stuff to make it fun, that's in a native like blockchain environment or whatever. And so if there are, so I don't know, like, so one of the things that I was thinking about, and I started goofing around with a little of this. So I've been thinking a lot in like just drawing doodles, like open canvas. I use like a vector drawing tool. And I just move around, right? Like this makes sense over here. You pocket that. I don't have a plan or anything. It's improvising. I put on some music. I just hang out, and then like I make one of these things. We did a version of that was a little more focused last week, right? Where like primarily CJ and John, you were driving the thing, and we were all sort of poking around and creating structure through your driving, stuff like this. So that's the collaborative version. There is a focused version. And also John and Kristen, you guys have been making notes in like sort of Apple Notes or whatever, and talking about ways to pipeline that stuff into blocks, right? So there's a native, very nice interface. You want to use that. It's got a bunch of upside, but it's locked into their, whatever. So this SVG stuff has been popping up about putting it just on chain, right? And then this ties into, John, what you just said about the like sort of timeline aspect of creation of these kinds of things, both in historic, in a historical context or whatever. So over the last 2 days, I had like a couple doodling sessions, right? And that they have like I just put on a bunch of music or use that Endel app or whatever, get into a sort of like flow state, and like just sort of think out and then, connect things or whatever. And it's partially writing, it's partially I'm drawing ridiculous shit or whatever, partially like product design, speccing. But the general principle is like, I started thinking about, okay, so all this stuff is vector data. It's all locational on a canvas, right? There's a time element, like it was done across a session. You could very easily like add like playback controls on this thing, right? So that you could watch a thing get built in. You could also like record where the viewport is, right? Like there's a central thing based on pinching, zooming, whatever the hell. you could replay all of that. That's not too much information, I don't think, right? And it's SVG, so it's pretty light, so exportable or whatever. And so this, and then this thing could all be written to chain, right? However you want to do that, however, right? So it could be a session that's replayable. It's very portable, like, it could be linkable to audio sources or something like this. I don't know. Anyways, but it has a feel of something that like, I don't know. I don't know that it necessarily has to be a Web3 thing, right? Like maybe that's where, yeah.
Well, like this is where you can chunk parts of a session, right? And like, let's say you're just drawing and you finish drawing like a body or even a body part, like you're drawing a body, I guess, in this session. Like this is an arm.
Oh, that's right. That. Yeah.
And then that becomes like a little piece of, I don't know if it's code, but it's a block on the chain. Other people can use that block. Other people can relate to that in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And then the sort of like big picture, like meta of this seems like this is how machine learning and AI should be trained anyway. A bunch of people doing this and being like, this is called ARM. And the machine's like, okay, this is ARM. That one's also ARM. And then eventually you can get to a thing where you're like, create a blue big arm. And the computer's like, here's like an amalgamation of like, yeah, what I've been told is blue and arm. That feels
so that's cool, the long-term case. In the short-term case, you can share thinking with other people, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here's how I got, you can do the lineage thing. Here's how I got here. Here's the pathway. But also, and then like there's the teachable stuff. Like if you want to learn how, like teachers could do this, how I drew a face or how I did shading, like, and then you could like zero in on like, oh, that's what they were doing to get that exact piece that like I could never figure out. And every time I do it, it looks like, I don't know, poop.
And so there's the procedural that specific thing is so helpful because without that, like you could stare at that and be a complete beginner and be like, this looks so easy, and then do it and you're like, again, like, wow, this looks like total poop. Right?
Like, how did I do that? How did they do that? And mine looks like that.
Yeah. You can just add a subtextual layer to it. So like the annotation layer or whatever, and it's all chunkable, right? And it's all non-destructive. It's all vector, so it's pretty light. Like there's a bunch of stuff we can do in here, right?
Yeah, and
there's a way to store it. So,
you can build things from the blocks too. Like, I mean, knowledge work too. It's like snippets, like chunks of things. And you're like, I'm going to build a paper from someone else's thinking, like these 10 people's thinking on this topic. And then you're just,
Well, you can pull that thing out of the context, place it in another context. It has a link back to how it was made that you can scrub through with a viewer, right? So like it has an innate like rewatchability, rediscoverability, this kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, so this is a type of thing, this is a type of material that you can create with this mindset. And like it's a format kind of, right? So there are these new formats that are popping up based on input, output, composability, whatever. This is the doodle format in my head, but like this is whether or not that's a good idea to build, I don't know, but the pieces are starting to stick together on this kind of thing.
You're understanding what the material like attributes
affords.
Yep. Because once like this is kind of, I mean, this is obviously a designer approach of once you get an understanding like the metaphor and you can sort of play in that metaphor and communicate it to other people to use the metaphor, it becomes so much easier to talk about it, build with it, whatever you need to do. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. There are some of these that will just showcase really well what they can do. Like, that's what I think I'm hunting for. Like, what is because I want this one because I love it. I would do it all the time. Like being able to send a viewable doodle session, like just you can scrub through it. You can watch it build in. So you can watch where my trains of thoughts and where I jumped off and then why I drew over here or whatever the hell. there is some information in that. I don't know if it is expressible, but there's probably a form that can be coordinated. Anyways, yeah, so there's a selfish part of that, but there is something that is adjacent that would also maybe be instructive, or like, here is a kind of thing, and it's not that complex. But yeah, so I threw like on, where was it? I put a post on Buzzard. I posted the
doodle on the site.
Canvas.
Yeah, here.
What app do you use?
Use an app. What the hell is it called? Concept Pro. Guess I'll just put this in.
I dropped a
I got
current
it.
replit build, which is the current, like the most recent code, so that works, or the Vercel link might work too.
Oh, for the.
Yeah, if you were talking about honeycombs.
No, I wasn't. This one I just put on Buzzard.life. Sorry,
Oh,
I'm like half
Buzzard.life.
cracked right
No worries.
now. So
Yeah. All good.
anyways, as far as I got was put the doodle in an SVG, get that in the page, and then find an SVG zoom panner with a tiger in it. And then that works. I haven't combined the two yet.
Whoa.
And this is just
Can
off the shelf
Good.
stuff. But yeah, go ahead.
you made me think of a potential like spin out project that could use the block system but be done a little bit quicker and is maybe a little bit more game like. We've talked about Exquisite Corpse before, right?
Yeah.
The concept of like, you have one square that you can draw within, and then somebody can have a square attached to it, but it needs to connect the lines in between. I wonder if like we use blocks, set up like a doodling UI, some kind of like front end system to like, check if the SVG, actually it could be on chain, to check if like the SVG end path on one square matches with the SVG start path on like, the square, above it, below it, however. And then, yeah, UI for minting, and then anybody can doodle it and then mint it. So they pay their own gas fee. Potentially we collect a minting fee. Like we can charge like 0.005 ETH and then just have that go somewhere. And then that kind of becomes a game where like you're trying to get in on interesting areas, or like you're trying to get all your friends in the same row or something. And then it can kind of go out infinitely from the center, which I don't know. Just think that
like
less.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Like creative tile exploration, sort of. This is cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's the game version of it. Yeah, like it's co-creating a canvas, and then the canvas has inherent value, and then you get the possibility of like a cultural bubble up in some weird areas or whatever, and then it's it's super lightweight and portable and stuff. So, and it's playing into the like native. I mean, I like all these experiments. They're fun. So yeah. What would the front end on that be? Like just a set size canvas, and then how do you imagine?
Kind of picturing like what, we'll set like a square size or something for each like unit. So if that's say like 500 pixels by 500 pixels, I think a UI would just be like you're browsing the map that is already there that exists. So you can maybe like pan and zoom around. And then if you can maybe see like the edges, like if you played like Civilization, where like you're exploring the map and the tiles like fill in from gray as you explore, like maybe the whole map behind the scenes is gray, and then you can fill out tiles and add a white square next to any other white square that's already been filled in. And then zoom in on that 500 pixels, doodle your thing. Something checks if the lines are actually connected or close enough, and then mints. And then you get it on OpenSea and can do whatever.
So this is really giving me some flashbacks to one of the Reddit's most interesting experiments, which was that pixel game or something, where it's just 1,000 by 10,000 by 10,000 pixels. And I think each subreddit got 1 pixel per something X amount of time. And so all of a sudden you have voting about how this pixel is used. You have like whole clubs about the importance of certain colors over others. You have like all of this emergent social like. It was incredible. It was like one of the most interesting internet experiments in the world. But it was still under the umbrella of like Reddit, and the way it was managed was very Reddit-esque, like something truly open that basically the only governance is do your boundaries line up with with the existing boundaries is like there's something very open about that, very invitational. It's like not there's like yeah, it's unopinionated, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's like a thin interface to participation too. Like here's a square, go nuts.
Yep.
Like and
Yep.
to whatever level of ability or elaboration or whatever it is. Yeah. I
And
really
then meta
like this
games
thing.
and stuff that
It's
can
cool.
be played within it. So like if somebody's developing, you know, if somebody like you've got, I'm looking at the thing on Honeycombs now where you've got like these 4 panels, like, you know, somebody could take a panel that's right next to, or somebody could take a panel that's right next to an existing one that has some interesting character on it. And then to be like, I'm going to start drawing a comic strip using this character. And we're going to go from left to right for 10 squares and then go down, you know, there's like inherent culture that gets developed through people's creativity and how they riff on the things that are next to each other.
Okay, so presumably that also implies that you could create a collection of such tiles, and that becomes an entity of its own that still takes in like the underlying tiles. And so, right, there's like three people came together and created this strip. Well, now that series of things is its own thing, but so are the individual tiles. That is fascinating. Yes.
It's kind of like the block to post kind of thing, right? Like maybe you're like, hey, we've got these 3 blocks next to each other. They're all complementary. They all tell like one story. Let's hit the check marks on them and turn them into a post.
Yes.
Kind of fits the same flow, right?
It is.
Is our schema design actually good and it's working for things?
There is a materiality, a pattern of things that can be developed with this kind of thing. So like Tyler talking about like the sort of complex journalistic case of research, you know, that's a hyper version of it, right? Like you got a bunch of people and there's a bunch of stakes or whatever, but this little basic composability towards collections and sets and posts and forms that are more complex based on context, I think, I don't know. Yeah, good sign.
That is nice. I'm also curious if there's something about, just like social, like the idea that you're not coming to this thing alone, but with like a squad. Like I'm gonna invite 4 friends and we're gonna like go and fill out some tiles together, and we see where each map, and we see where everybody else is on the map, but we like have some level of spatial awareness of each other that's higher fidelity than everybody else.
Yeah, there are a couple more rules of blockchain media here. You never start from 0, I think. Like, you know, like somebody might have to seed it, but after that, there's the possibility of, so it is innately improvisational that way. There is always something to play with. So like you never have to like the blank canvas thing, you know, not always, I guess. I think things that tend to have something to play with, like produce forward momentum more often than things that don't. I guess maybe that's a better way of putting it.
There's some predictability to the initial steps, right? Like you start with a center square, and then there's 4 different slots that open up, right? Potentially 8 if you want to include diagonals. But there's a limited set now where people can then be like, I'm going to take this one. And now there's culture developing like eastward, and then there might be a different culture developing westward and north and south. And like, as these things expand, you start getting like smaller and smaller kind of, you know, things. Some people might be like, let's do something that's the exact opposite of what our diagonal friends are doing. I don't know, it could be really
Westerners, the dirty Southies. Yeah, what I just pictured there was like you just do this with honeycombs. there's your squares are nicer though because you can use them for other kinds of things. But who knows? You can do any kinds of, because then you get more. I mean, it's like the Catan board or whatever. Like I think in role playing games, you end up with the sort of I don't know if it's octagons every time or whatever.
It could be like hex or octagons. I think both. I think hex is Catan for sure, but I'm not sure about other ones.
So
just because I think you get more surface area for composability that way, and so different types of mechanics between the different blocks, I guess. So interesting.
Civilization is hexagons too.
Okay.
In Game of Thrones too.
Is there a
Hmm.
cool? Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, like a material that is like got a lot of access points, right? And then
Yeah.
yeah,
I really like circles for some reason. I mean,
They
there's like
don't-
this there's empty space that comes with circles, but I don't know.
Okay.
It's just like it's like if you're like two circles just intersecting, you have this like tangent point that emerges versus like
Mm.
overlapping and stuff. Like and now you can have like lots of like infinite
That's cool.
number of circles interacting, and you can start creating like hyper spheres and dimensions and stuff. Like even I was drawing out the squares and I was like, wait, what does this look like in 3D? Like, can you transform
Yeah.
this 2D model into 3D?
It's a
Even if
cube.
you like, if you had 8, all of a sudden, like if you started with 4, like you can kind of fold it potentially. But with
Yeah.
8, like now all of a sudden it opens up more dimensionality to project into a different space, which is
I mean, yeah, you
kinda
get the
interesting.
hyper fidelity version. So like we're like doing the stick figure version, right? It's like a 500 by 500 square with one color pencil, and you can draw like in black and white. Like that's it. And
Yeah.
stick all that together, see what happens. Like the lo-fi is a feature right now because
It
that's
is.
where we are in the stack.
Yeah.
And so, but
sure.
you can exact that out, add a dimension, right? And then add time. And then you add the material stuff, like there's water coming through, there's flame, there's, land, you can, do all kinds of things. So whatever, there's
Earthquakes.
beams and forces and, you get into, I guess, Minecraft territory here, but they're individual cubes that are creating a larger, sort of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, different directional avenues. Weird.
This lo-fi thing is really like getting me. I kind of noticed it earlier too, because it's like a product of the cost of doing something on chain, it seems like,
Yeah.
for the most part. And I took a class on video game music when I was in college, and it's very reminiscent of early like music, and you're only working with 8 bits. So like how do you come up with music? And like I guess the next like question for me is like, oh, like are we going to get like generated NFT music as well, like in similar ways? Like I don't know if that's been done yet, but like I'm certain it's coming.
Sort of. There was that artist that like made a NFT type thing of her voice that was the model, and then put a DAO around it. But that wasn't like
Interesting.
purely generated on chain. I think what you're going more towards is like the data on the chain is the like audio itself, and perhaps even the instrument. Like for that.
Like, is MIDI as compact as SVG?
It must be.
I think so. It's like pure data as well. I assume so.
I mean, this is back in
that
the
might
day.
be the equivalent, right?
Yeah, I think so. These like lightweight formats they feel naturally like, oh, just do this, because then they're like, this is the cartridge thing that Dom's probably playing with. Like there's it doesn't need to be heavyweight. You can, I mean, it's like the 1 kilobyte JavaScript games back in the day, these kinds of things. Yeah. I don't know. Those forms are fun. You get a lot of creativity out of them for a very little surface area. And like the elegance and the composability is like what you're looking for. So like if you can get like a very limited feature set that provides, I don't know. I think that these things are a good thing to think about for like providing an example of what the material or whatever we're trying to work with can do. And then get some feedback on what
onboarding too. Like having games that people can play, and then they know how like the base like processing works with a game, and then you can go do other things with it.
Oh, whoa.
CJ
I was just like, are you thinking of like everyone kind of starts from the same square with a group, and then like from there, like now they understand like how to use the squares, and like you can kind of build some kind of flow into it too. Like it does have that, like that is kind of the initial condition in a way.
Mm-hmm. Now imagine it wasn't
interesting.
this specific game or this board. It's something completely different, and people are like, whoa, okay, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think like invite system, like as like a growth hook that people use traditionally, of like, use it first few users while we're in beta, get X number of invites to give out. If you do that spatially, could be interesting.
Yeah.
Of like, oh yeah,
Lots to give
I get
out.
to give invites to all my neighbors out.
Yep.
and
Yeah,
it
invite
makes you
per
want to
edge,
grow like a
yeah.
certain culture around that too,
Then
potentially.
you
like,
have,
if
yeah,
it's
then you have
understood.
neighborhoods,
Yeah.
Right.
and
Oh
like you're
yeah.
part of a neighborhood based on your edge overlap or whatever.
Yep.
This one has legs, whatever this
This
is.
one,
There's something
yeah,
here.
like I
Feels
picture it
fun.
and it's so vivid. I'm just like, wow, wow. Maybe because like it's just so much less abstract than like knowledge graphs, because that like
Yep.
those take me a while to really warm up to, and I'm like, I can kind of see it, but then it's like, but then
This you
this
can
app
literally
does everything
see. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so tangible and like simple. It's just
Yep.
your block, you're like next to other blocks. Just make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To me,
that
this also
social
feels
thing,
way
yeah,
more
ties it.
natural.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I like do on paper. Like Dave, you're describing like your drawing process. And I'm like, this is like how I also work. And just thinking about like all of these relationships, I draw arrows and like all this all the time, like
Yeah.
super naturally. So it seems like, at least for me, like a very like natural interface and like something that's like very intuitive. Like you just kind of understand it as well.
Yeah, so we just need an input. I mean, there's a bunch of these drawing things out there, aren't there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm imagining like a
Some
very
off the
simple
shelf.
JavaScript click-in component that just gives you like a pen and an eraser tool, maybe some color selection. That I think I may have used one of these in the past, so they definitely exist.
Yeah, my buddy Chuck has like a whole
Hmm.
storyboarding thing built in JavaScript that like they like storyboarded Black Panther in it. So like JavaScript wise, you can do a fair bit. So
Yep.
if we need any help on that, I'm sure he understands the whole thing.
Sweet. One more element here that I really like is that it, similar to the onboarding and information architecture, it's also potentially a good route for onboarding like the actual Web3 tools and wallets,
Mm.
because
Mhm.
right now it's like if you're trying to get somebody on, at best right off the bat they can get an ENS name for hundreds of dollars in gas fees.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like, what do they need that for yet? Like that
Is
versus
that how much
this,
it
which would be-
costs now?
right now in ENS name, this morning it was 300 in gas fees, but yesterday was
Gas has been crazy lately.
Yeah,
it's just all
Holy
these
projects
parties
popping
happening.
off.
Yeah.
But
Holy
the
shit.
idea is like, can you get somebody a wallet? Can they throw $20 of Ethereum into there and have fun? Like,
Yeah.
this seems like a much easier way to do that. It's going to like appear in their wallet. They're like, this is a thing I own, but it's connected to other things, and my
Mhm.
identity is tied to it. And this wallet is how I use. Like, it kind of answers all those questions in a very learnable, interactive, like low stakes way, which I'm just not seeing a lot of in Web3 right now. Like the NFT kind of buy-in thing, the floor, like which ironically, like this term people keep referring to, the floor buy-in for either a specific piece or a set of pieces. It feels like the whole floor is also rising. Like just to get into that right
Yeah.
now for a new person, it's just like it's terrifying. Versus,
Yeah.
oh, go draw a doodle, and that's your floor. Like
Yeah.
5 minutes of of playtime.
That floor will get cheap soon, someday.
True.
But yeah, in the meantime, I think, I don't know. It's a good like, here's the whole package deal on what you're getting into. Like you draw this,
Yep.
you hit that button, then it's over here, you can see it, and then somebody else can add to it, and they can also buy it. You can link up to it. Yeah, I don't know. And it's a tiny little format that is one
Very
color.
low memory, low everything.
Yep.
Not saying this is a good idea, but mechanically it's possible where like if we were to charge a mint fee, we could distribute it to neighbors when it happens.
Hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
have things that people want to like, build within your
Extend
area,
off.
you can start getting like, 0.5% or whatever
Mm.
of that stuff and have it accrue as like, depending on the distance to you, or I don't know how to model it, but you can
Okay.
play with money.
Yeah,
that
some
way,
like
which is kind of
exponential
fun.
Yeah,
decay
yeah.
function or
Yep.
something.
That's an
Yeah,
interesting.
based on distance. I mean, that one's pretty straightforward. Like,
Distances,
yeah,
simple.
distance from a center point or something like that.
Yeah. How do you get a whole community
How many
or a whole
hops does it
neighborhood
take?
to agree to mint too? Like there's could be like different games there.
Hmm.
When is it ready
Yeah.
to mint? It's not ready yet. We need to add more things over in this area. Do we? Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So okay, just kind of thinking also about where we were at last week with like potentially doing blocks off chain in the sense that they like just emit an event and then get stored on the graph, which is like, you know, secure enough but cheap. And so it's not an NFT. It's not going to show up in OpenSea or in your Rainbow wallet when it's in block form. If we were to apply that here, and then anybody could basically, you know, select like a rectangle to mint into a post through like, you know, the equivalent of our checkbox system. But maybe maybe for this kind of UI, it's a little bit more drag and drop or something.
Yep.
That's kind of interesting because especially if it's not one block per post, because then somebody can just be like, I'm gonna do the whole thing, or something. But then during that minting process, maybe whichever squares you include, your minting fee gets distributed out somehow to whoever's making basically whoever's drawing things that are worthy of capture into some other context that is then minted. The original creator of the individual component is somehow, you know, on chain relationally with that ultimate product and earning from it.
Yeah. So are you seeing like, so I'm trying to picture the map. So like you land on it like as a group or as an individual, like how are you seeing that process? Like, you know, you have some interface that you can draw in 500 by 500 squares. You can choose some number of those 500 by 500 squares based on something that is already drawn or based on giving yourself a canvas. Yeah, like
I think I haven't thought this fully through yet, but I'm basically thinking there's two modes of like, I'm just going to draw and I'm going to add blocks to the canvas. And that has some fee because you still have to send a transaction that'll emit that event. So it's not like, you know, it's harder to spam in the sense that it's going to cost you money to do so, which is a good thing here, I think. And then then the other mode is I'm going to select an area from this to that I want to capture into an image, and then that gets minted into an NFT. And then somehow we do a thing where if there's an upfront minting cost, we can just easily divide that out to the independent owners of each block because we know that data. On the marketplace side of things, of like if somebody goes and sells it through OpenSea, that's a little bit more complicated because it's a third-party marketplace contract. So I don't know, but from the initial mint fee, I think it could make sense. But yeah, two modes: draw, kind of more free form. You still have to pay a little bit to transact, but not crazy gas minting fees. Just event emitting fees, which I think probably are like a 10th or 15% or so, I would assume. And then, yeah, if you want to mint just your one block, your 1 by 1 unit, you can do that. If you want to mint a, 3 by 10 unit, you can do that too. If you want to mint a 500 by 500 unit, you can do that as well. But it's just your minting fee is being distributed out to that group. In some sense, yeah. I mean, I also if we're gonna charge a mint fee, real quick, sorry, we should probably keep some for ourselves and set up the multi-sig. It'd be nice to get a revenue system.
Agreed.
Even just to play around with what all of the mechanics on that stuff feel like for something this stupid would be great. Because we get a feel for where the frictions are. It gives us something to build. And it's silly. So yeah, I'm thinking about the like sort of scarcity and economics of like the bigger blocks, and like, is there a larger scale container? Is it an infinite canvas that you can build out forever? Or like, where is there a world? I don't know.
On that note,
and how do you start a new canvas?
Yeah.
Do you earn the right to start a new canvas somehow? Yeah. Or like, so if you're one of the first starters of like a block, you get to invite only your neighbors. Did they have to then invite you to do a new block? Or once you get like all of your neighbors to come in, then you get like another block in the same like board? Like, yeah. Or is it one and
John,
done?
John,
I
were
mean,
you
there could be rules for everything. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Couple thoughts that are coming here. To Kristen, to what you just described, Conway's game of life. It feels
Yeah.
resonant here, where like certain configurations are stable, certain configurations can spawn new configurations from themselves, and certain ones die. And there's something around that. The other thing is like
Cool.
Dave, you were saying you can like snapshot things. I guess I'm wondering, is there a difference between snapshotting blank squares versus filled in squares versus a combination of them? Because then you're saying I'm highlighting this piece that will have content. I don't know what that content is yet, but like I'm highlighting it in a way and I'm pointing to
Yep.
it.
Those should decay. If they're
Like
not
a blank-
filled, they start falling apart. So that
they start falling off.
land speculation.
So-
Anyway.
I think there's something really interesting here, because it seems like the canvas has opened up a lot of possibilities. And Kristen's question of, can someone else create a canvas, or like how is that done, is like similar to film.
Yeah.
Is there like a canvas protocol?
Yeah.
And then now like you can define your own rules within the canvas, which now have this Conway's Game of Life property, or like all these different properties that can actually like kind of arise depending on how people want to play with it.
This is tying into, I was thinking about, like, we read that, some of us read the what the fucking Roblox thing, right? And there is a empty layer or empty world,
Empty state,
your blank state, where you have all of the tools to build a world, but effectively it's got a minimum thing. It's got like a portal that you can come into. It's got like a landing place. It's it's got attributes and physics or whatever to the type of world that you can build, right? But it is a blank slate. But it is inherently compatible with the rest of the sort of metaverse or whatever it is. With the canvas thing, you could create a sort of environmental field with each one of these things, and they have attributes that like property, like in the case that we were talking about, there's one color and there's a pen and there's a it's an XY surface or whatever, and then there are certain things it knows what its neighbors are doing and these kinds of things, and it expands at a certain rate, and it has some economic properties or whatever. So this is another materiality thing, like what the nature of the canvas gives it a different fabric, basically, these attributes. And you can do different kinds of things with that type of fabric. I may be pushing this one a little hard, but it gives me a mental model to work with.
I like the. God.
As far as like the dynamics that we were considering for the larger, like DAO or swarm or hive, whatever we call what we're putting together, where there's certain onboarding, like on-ramps to getting into the game of play. So there's probably on-ramps to getting into this game of play, but once you're in, then you get like you earn the right to start a new board, or like there's certain other things like that you can do from there. So that also creates a scarcity, like you have to be invited to join. But yeah, and like the first round of play is like just one round of play, and then you can from there go get into more of the nuance of like the whole toolkit that's available to you. Yeah, there could be different styles of play too. Yeah,
couple thoughts that I think tie into that. Going back a little bit, if we were to do instead of a flat minting fee of like 0.005 ETH or whatever on whichever capture you want to do, if that was actually a product of how much space you wanted to capture, that would inherently kind of set up some kind of constraints that might be interesting in terms of how people play with it. Are the things that capture a whole bunch of things somehow inherently more valuable because it costs more?
Yeah,
potentially, who knows? But that also means that each individual like designer of a square now has like, I'm gonna earn money by making things that are interesting to capture into other contexts.
Yep.
And then potentially if your square gets purchased or minted or incorporated, that could be one of the unlock mechanisms for like, hey, now you have the ability to create a board because clearly you can create something that's an initial like feed that other people want to build on top of, or they're just buying their own stuff, which is fine too. You can't really get around that on the blockchain stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, all of this is like data capture for like more complex versions of these same kind of mechanics.
Yeah.
Like, because we're just creating a primitive game that's basically like, you're a person who creates things. What are the types of things that happen when you have like a modular creation system? Like, how do people game it? How do they break it? What do they do socially? Because like building like something that's more architecturally important, like a relational OS, having some understanding of like the social dynamics for componentizing and the types of things that encourage like healthy development, I think this is a good like lab, like petri dish version of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, if the media of Web3 is different than what people are used to, they
Yeah.
need to sort of dip their toe. Like it's hard for
Like
people who
staging
aren't
grounds.
in the mindset, like to grok what's going on. They're like, what? How? I mean, how many people have you talked to that are just like, I don't know what you're saying. And you're like, yeah, like, let me try this way. But making it like simple. Yeah, it's nice.
Mhm.
Doodle land.
Doodle land.
Doodle
That
dot
domain
land.
taken?
Yep.
Gotta be.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Is land the TLD?
Mhm.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Is it?
Doodle.space is reserved by somebody.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Doodle.community.
That's a nice one. I don't know if y'all are
Doodle
familiar
dot
with Domainer,
ooh.
my favorite for searching.
What's that?
The little link I dropped, domainr.com. It's like a
Hmm.
great search engine I use for this.
Oh, nice.
Doesn't pull in all the latest snazziest TLDs, but it does
Yeah.
like nice concatenation searches.
Sure, there's something in there. Doodle.cache.
Oh yeah.
Everybody come draw dollar bills.
Exactly. You're minting your own blocks, literally, and they need to have the like precision of a dollar bill. So like, go in there and make the new currency. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here with seasons, and you could do layers, just layer on top of an existing
Exquisite.land.
map. Exquisite
What was it?
land.
Exquisite.land if we want to play into the kind of original name
Yeah.
of the game.
Exquisite. That's not bad.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's good. Exquisite land is nice. It has a luxury feel
A
that it
flavor.
doesn't deserve.
It does.
I like the
That's
tension
going
of
in the
that.
HTML as a comment. It
Yeah.
has a luxury that it doesn't deserve.
A cheap material that is the finest of its kind. Yeah. I like it. Yeah, I think that's good. Exquisite land. I don't know. I think this thing is worth like looking at. I don't know how it relates to the other stuff that we're doing.
Another adjacent channel.
I mean, if there is like maybe a hackathon style version of trying to get this out the door as lo-fi as possible without doing the weekly games. Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason in my mind I was picturing like a Saturday marathon where we all do kind of that lo-fi video thing where we set up a space and people are in and out and there's a constant build that can be updated by everybody, and there's something, and it's like small enough that 24 to 48 hours could be a huge push. Like that's a lot of development time for something like this.
Yeah, I don't know. And
especially among five of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that then it's just a question of like, what can we do in that time that we feel is, I mean, it goes out the door no matter what. Like one of those things. And like, if people use it or not, who cares? Like, or we could try to launch it or something like that. I don't know. But I think, Like we can see if we can. I think it's a good. I think that
Yeah, well, I
I'd be
think
down to play that game. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
part of it would be the thing that is built is accessible right away, but
Yeah.
like a couple weeks later, after a little bit of polish and like setup, then maybe a slightly bigger announcement is made. But this idea that it's just like interactable with from day zero is really nice. It's like open, it's hackable. You just it's because like it's invitational at its nature. So
that's another law of blockchain media. It is inherently invitational.
Mhm.
Got all the laws. One of the other things that's related but kind of not. So I've been thinking about like the name of the overall thing that projects like this sit in that we're doing, right? And the place that I've landed is Relata, which we can push on to see, but like namespace wise, nobody is in that space. It is a concept from philosophy about a material that has been developed from potential into something that is just prior to actualization. So like potential into like moving it from the sort of collective unconscious into some workable material that is innately like relational. That is Relata. So
is it spelled ROL or RAL?
like relational.
RELATA.
RELATA. So spelling is already a problem there. So it doesn't spell.
I'm terrible
There's a
spelling
Wikipedia
that also,
page.
so.
There you go. It exists.
Sounds
Anyhow.
like gelato. That's what you were thinking, John.
Sounds like a food. That's
It
not a
sounds
bad
like
thing. It's consumable.
It sounds like a food to me every time he brings it up. I'm like,
Moldable. It's digestible. Yeah, I don't know. Because I don't know what else to call it. And relational OS doesn't really hit it for
Doesn't
me because I
evoke.
think we're going to do lots of things within this space. I don't know. Might also be a name for the type of blockchain media. It's Relata.
I like it.
Doodle World is available.
Doodle World is available.
That's
It's
fine.
$3,399.
Oh,
Never
yikes.
mind.
Everything
We'd
is
have to raise some
available if
money.
you have enough money.
I think that's
Did you
exactly
hear-
1 ETH.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
pretty much.
Well, we need to raise an ETH so we can afford a domain. Well, now you can turn it into your wallet. So just, get your money back that way.
Relata.com is taken. Relata.io.co. I mean, weird.
They are taken or not?
R, according to domain R.
I mean, it'd be very unlikely that nobody had landed on any of this.
Relata land is available.
There you go.
Relata world. .website is a thing?
Wait, is C? Yeah. Well, that's how you know. CO is taken? Did I register that?
Did you register that?
Relata.co is taken. Org, net, com, IO, US.
Yeah. Okay. It's a first attempt. It doesn't need to stick.
XYZ.
But anyway, there you go.
That's my favorite new TOD. Just
Relation.
everything under an XYZ.
Relation.al. That would have been good. Of course, someone put that.
That's nice.
Relational also could work, but there's a lot of competition in that there space.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Just redefine what it means.
It's possible.
Connective
doing
tissue.
What? That's
Connective
awesome.
tissue.
It'd be worth
Tissue
having that
is-
for some other project.
Yeah, what the heck?
Well, tissue is not a whatever. I don't know.
Oh, you can't get us
That would've
excited
been
What
so
like
is
this.
UE?
Well, I went to see. You can get connectivetissue.co. That's for sale. Or IO. Materia.com is for sale.
Oh,
How?
for how much?
It doesn't say on this site.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably.
Again, everything's for sale.
It's like a restaurant.
Wow,
without prices on the screen.
$100,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
No. Yeah.
I like this little
Materia.io
banner.
is for sale for not a lot.
They do like materia
The
too.
original, the classic. Oh, what?
This is a weird branding exercise for .com.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
They're like, just finished watching Mad Men and we're so inspired.
Yeah. Palria? Why would they suggest that? Palria.
Paul Ria.
Yeah, Palria. When you look up materia, the other options, they're like, what about palria.online or brotheria.com?
They just
Whoa.
randomly generate stuff in the same
Partneria
pattern.
with 2 R's. Partneria.
Sounds like a disease.
Wait, I like this
Venereal
one.
disease.
Chumria. Chumria. Ooh, dot rocks is a what is
Dot
that called?
rocks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is it called?
TLD.
TLD.
TLD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dot rocks.
Granite rocks.
Mhm.
Sorry, that's too literal.
Vodka rocks is for sale. 150,000, of course.
What did you say? Vodka rocks?
Yeah, vodka on the rocks. Just a really good drink.
Someone's a lush.
Youths aren't saying cool
Right
anymore.
now, I
They're
want
saying things like
burritos rock.
dope, rad, or even worse, on fleek. But cool's making a comeback.
I love how they're promoting TLDs. This is so great. Why?
Where is this? On domain R?
Yeah, if you click on a TLD, then this is what pops up. Just a TLD.
I wonder if all this like copywriting came out of a need or a desire. Like,
Exactly.
was it because
I mean,
people were
potentially-
confused about the difference, or was it because they're like, let's just get creative with it? Let's
I
write
mean-
a thing for each one.
You got to imagine there's somebody who's a writer and has to put something on the page. It might as well be fun. So
you
I like
never
that
know, could have
world.
been GPT-3.
could be.
Oh yeah.
You have like thousands of TLDs that you don't even want to write about. Stick them in.
New project in partnership with OpenAI.
Oh, Cosmotown.net. Porkbun.org. Why is it funny? It is though. Like it's very funny, this stuff.
I mean, just because imagine the organization. Pork Bun. What are they into? What are they up to? What are they doing? I mean, all of this feels like, I don't know, early 2000s again. We're talking about like constraints, 8-bit constraints, MIDI files,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then like looking
so
at domains like they matter.
How is buzzard.com
Maybe we should be buying the
$15,000?
ETH domains instead, you know?
Oh.
Could be. I think relata.eth was available. I'm just going to keep saying it out loud until it loses
Until it
its
catches
luster.
fire.
No, or that loses
Or
luster,
one of the
catches
two.
fire. Yeah.
Keep thinking
Do
of
like
regatta.
Yeah.
Anything.
Ricotta.
That's fine.
Or
Nice sailing
ricotta.
metaphor. Or ricotta. See, we've got a built-in logo. It's just like a bunch of ships, sailing ships made out of ricotta cheese, racing each other.
Taxi,
Cute.
Taipei, tattoo. These are Tatar. Oh,
Guitar.
those are all TLDs. Talk. Buzzard talk.
Did you hear exquisite.land for the other thing? Or were you gone?
Yeah.
I was gone.
Oh, exquisite
Well,
land.
We've got exquisite land.
Wait, buzzard.talk is potentially available.
She doesn't care.
No, I don't care. Exquisite for
Well, because the game is called Exquisite Corpse. It's a
Oh.
doodling game. Don't worry about it. We'll go over it later.
Exquisite is fine. It's just a mouthful.
That's the point. Luxury.
Luxury.
Things that are easy to say. Oh, it can't be worth a lot of money.
Sorry, taco. Tacos are out.
Yep. Sorry,
Buzzard
taco.
taco. No.
Buzzard meat tacos.
Buzzard training, buzzard.today, buzzard tools, buzzard tours, buzzard
I
team,
had,
tips,
I've been
town. Buzzard
yeah.
town is available.
Okay, if you want to live in a buzzard town.
Buzzard tienda, buzzard shop. That's cute. Buzzard tube.
Don't know.
Tyrol. Buzzard
This is
trust.
why I landed on .life, because you know,
Buzzard. Dot tie.
It's a,
living that buzzard life. We're a lifestyle brand.
Izio is a TLD.
All right, no more TLDs. It'll last forever.
It will. It's fun though.
Yeah, if you ever need inspiration, just Google the Wikipedia TLD list and scroll down, and you will see things that should not exist. It's a mess. I don't know how those things are being minted.
Buzzard love. That's really good. And buzzard lawyer.
Not good. I don't, lawyer.
ooh, got pizza.
Buzzard living potentially available.
Ooh.
We're selling real estate now.
Realty.
It's like what do they call those things? A timeshare on a buzzard residence.
All right, so back to Exquisite Land. How do timeshares work in Exquisite Land? Rental properties, you got all kinds of stuff you can do there.
Yeah, you only get
Whoa.
you only get 3 hours from the time of invite to fill in your square and everything.
Or you get 3 hours a day.
No,
on your
3 hours
Sure.
total.
Oh, oh my god.
Each person.
There's-
It's like ticking down.
Yeah.
I do
how
like the
big is-
idea
How big is the square?
500 by 500 pixels, but
How
Yeah,
big
like-
is that?
compared to what?
Yeah.
I don't know, inches or centimeter? Like how big is this?
It depends on your screen. It gets complicated.
Yeah, like
it'd be like the
Like
old
an Instagram
Instagram
post.
posts, roughly.
yeah,
Yeah,
Instagram
about an
post is
Instagram
good.
post. Yeah.
There we go. I do like the idea, so of maybe like some randomization in the thing that gives them different properties that are composable. Time could be one of those things, so that like, yeah, I don't know when that gets delivered up, or you know how
Yeah,
in
and
the
then
process that shows up.
Suddenly someone announces that there's a new color pen in the whatever, and it's only available for a period of time.
Yeah.
That's fun too.
Yeah, there's like potential for evolution here. Two tiles next to each other bring forth a new attribute that other tiles can use, but only if they
Yep,
extend
yep.
on from that like region. Wow. And I mean, I'm assuming each of these tiles can then be related to code as well, so they could have like they could have their own. I don't know. This sounds very fun. We need to schedule this hackathon because
Mhm.
Yeah, a V2 with like JavaScript built in, where like you can script your
Yeah.
SVGs to like animate or to do things that are, you know, like
Ooh.
reading inputs from your neighbors and then using those variables
Yeah.
somehow. So then
Yeah.
you could be like, I'm gonna make a speed variable widget that's gonna speed up everything that's around me or whatever, and then people can copy paste it into I don't even know.
yes,
I do like
little
the
power-ups.
exposed variables thing. That's nice. And then maybe like an upper limit on the number of lines of code you can have on each block, so that like things don't get too elaborate. It's back to the 1K limit or whatever.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's like writing poetry at that point too, a little, or like a formatted kind of like it's got to be a haiku or it needs a certain number or a certain
Yeah. And then some set of global variables that everybody can use. Like weather or something. I don't know. Something that is like seasonal or moving through the things, that it's dynamic in some way.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me
Yeah.
of silent disco parties where everybody's wearing a headset that's tuned to one of a couple different stations, and like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
patterns that are like on top of each other but make sense in some way, and there's like patterns that happen because of the two patterns right next to each other, like all sorts of cool little dynamics. So all this could play out. This is fun.
Yeah, I think for the like, I guess we just have to agree on sort of the playing field, and we can do that as we go, or we can have some stuff up front. Like, I think it's the like first thing, is it like, what are the bounds? Are there limits? Is there a scarcity dynamic in play? Do they get filled up, or can you just keep going? Or is it a time limit instead of, a quantity limit? I don't know, these kinds of things. I think that gives us our playing field.
The one thing that I guess maybe I'm restating here, but like just for my own clarity, is if we come up with like one set of initial conditions, that there's a possibility of structuring it in a way that our set of conditions is just like a set of configurations in the solidity file, right? So that anybody could say infinite false to infinite true, and like then that whole board becomes its own like thing, but basically not baking in all of our parameters into the root thing, but trying to separate in some way like the protocol definition and our specific first implementation flavor of it. It's similar to building a front end for honeycombs and writing like the SDK and protocol layer separately, and just being like, this is a thing, here's our take on this one thing, but feel free to like modify and fork as needed. So maybe reducing the pressure that we might put on ourselves to come up with like the correct set of founding sort of variables, and instead just leaving them as variables.
Yeah, I think that like it's a design exercise, like an enacted design or an enacted build exercise to express some of what we've been doing with honeycombs in like a sort of toy-like interface to help us better understand the protocol. Like that's, we get lots of wins across that field. But yeah, thinking about it in terms of like things that could be extensible, but we're pulling back into the simplest expression of this thing, and then talking about the potentials that you could do if you go make your own whatever. Here are some variables that, I think, that's what I heard. I don't know. That makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sounds super fun.
This one would be interesting to invite some other people to, potentially.
Yeah.
Like to sort of hang out and
just like go crazy with it.
I think that would be a good energy for us. Because we're slogging along with the other stuff. It's coming along, but like it would be nice to have something out in the world and like, be able to point to that, like because we're doing a lot, and having to tell the story every time, it'd be nice, I think. So
I think also like at least the hackathon idea, it seems very relevant, and maybe like can kind of like start kickstarting a direction as well, because I think like that more synchronous thing will probably help. And I think even I forget who mentioned, maybe it was you, Dave, just like kind of keep the game flowing, and is like you have to have someone like always working or something. Like I mean, like maybe that's not the right energy, but like it's like fun to like trade off, especially in hackathon and like over different time zones.
A relay race.
That it's like a relay race, which would be, I think, pretty fascinating too.
Yeah, like because we've been like, we haven't played games in a while.
No.
And we've been talking about like doing the learning stuff or whatever. I think this is a way to take the building things that we've been doing, we've warmed up together, and then add like some game stakes to it. And then there's something that we can share at the end. So that's bringing back the game sort of, it gives us another coordination layer that we need to work on to figure out how we're best going to do that. There's other roles that can be played in this thing. I think it's good. Yeah. Fruitful. We bore some fruit. Well done.
Yep.
Did you buy Exquisite land? Sharuz? I can do
should
it.
Either way.
I've been buying those, so I might as well.
Matching them up.
We gotta,
What happens if you both try to buy it at the same time?
One person gets there first.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
is
I'd be
like
curious
I
if
just
I could get it down to the millisecond to where they actually cause a like collision. I feel like
Detonation.
that server is just gonna like take the first request, even if it's
like I don't know like how it ultimately works. Like, does it go to like if I was registering with Google and you're using like GoDaddy or whoever, like like does it
two
go to
separate
them first and then they're
providers.
like
Yeah.
and then like they go to someone else, or like I don't quite understand like how like underlying the process is going. Like, is it just like one central server? Who's running the server? I have no idea. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
don't mind me. I'm buying domains.
Yep,
He loves to do it.
it's fun.
I've been
Like a
I've been
stable
good.
full of them.
Definitely.
You gotta have your stable full of domains. You'll never know when they're gonna be valuable.
I don't need
But
any.
you got to keep watering them every year.
Yes.
Kristen, don't start. It's an addiction.
Yeah, I don't have a draw to it. I like looking at the words. It's fun. But if I'm not going to use it like immediately, I won't. Yeah, I like the constraint of like, okay, I'm going to go do something. I need to find the, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the pizza TLD. Pizza really makes me happy.
Mhm.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
CJ.pizza.
Oh yeah, that might exist, honestly. It does. It's only $72 a year.
Totally
bad.
worth it. So,
Kristen.pizza is taken? Who?
Now you gotta go to Kristen.pizza.
You got to fight.
There's going to be nothing there. Oh, it's Howdy at Kristen.pizza. She's right up my alley.
Wow.
Wait,
Make
email
in touch.
her?
This reminds me of the
Yeah,
phone number
email
friend
her for
game.
sure.
Just be like,
Were
it's
you-
good to meet you.
Yeah, in a similar idea, like you text the person +1 and -1 of your phone number, and you just like flow in a phone number friend. Kind of like this.
Yeah.
but
You
for
get- you got to get Kristen.burrito first and then email it from that domain.
Yeah.
suggest a trade, a food
Wait,
trade.
burrito is not one.
No, it's not.
That's
I had
rude.
this earlier. Taco. I wonder if taco is.
Cake? No. Cookies?
All the food.
Sugar?
I was thinking pizza has to be just because everyone likes pizza.
Yeah, taco?
True.
Taco isn't.
I don't know. It's just so ubiquitous.
That came up in the
TLD
meeting
food.
when they were brainstorming. All right, what one food can we all agree on?
They probably weren't eating pizza.
It makes sense.
Like in some conference room, they just had pizza for lunch.
All right, we have exquisite.land. Exquisite is really hard to spell.
It's
Told you.
Perfect.
It's going to be great for this project.
Yeah.
only
Maybe you just spelled
I
it
like
wrong.
Nobody types anything out. Only one. So that's the thing.
yeah.
Everybody's improvising. You just have to type it once and then link
Yeah.
it, and then everybody will find it
Yeah.
from there.
Kristen.abu dhabi is available. And avocado.
Whoa, I didn't know that was the TLD. That's amazing.
On some of those like country specific ones, you have to meet minimum requirements.
Oh,
So
really?
True.
like yeah, you'll have to like cut off a pinky and swear allegiance.
What is
with
avocado?
a-
Is that a place?
Avocado? I don't know. It's just a misspelling of avocado.
Yeah.
I worked with a guy named Tony No, spelled NGO. And then that domain was available, Tony.ngo. So I got it for him like right before his birthday.
Yeah.
Thinking like, this will be a fun thing. Like,
Yeah.
he's a developer. He'll appreciate it. And then it turned out after I paid for it that like there's this whole other process of proving that you're like a non-government organization.
Oh.
So it's like, all right, this is just going to expire in a year because I've already paid for it. Now I'm just not allowed to use it.
You should
I'm
have
not going to set
you
something up.
you should have given it to him and be like, all right, here's
Here's your problem now.
You deal
Set up
with
an
it.
NGO now.
you got to set
did
up an
tell him.
NGO.
I told him, I was like, if we want to figure it out, we can figure it out. And he's like, I'm good.
Had he looked into it before?
I don't think so.
That's hilarious.
How hard can it be? You can set up an NGO. Worth it. All right. Well, we got the domain. That's
Are we meeting tomorrow? There's something on the calendar.
Yeah, I think Phil should be
Understanding
coming
Club.
through tomorrow for
Oh, that's
Uniswap.
tomorrow.
Yep.
I'll rename it.
Yeah, how are we doing that? Are we just going to open up things and just go?
I think
Or is he
just
gonna-
the Zoom link. I invited him to the Discord. He has not joined, but the invite went out.
It stands.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll
Like
figure
a
it out
Zoom
on the
call
fly.
with YouTube stream auto generated for that,
Yeah.
and good enough.
Yeah, live to YouTube, and then
Oh yeah, does that work? I forgot. Yeah.
this is good because I don't really know anything about Uniswap. I can help pose questions.
Good.
All of us. I listened to that podcast today, and I think I have more questions than
Oh,
I did
yeah.
before. So, yeah.
Was
Like,
that the Spotify
kinda-
thing that you linked? I didn't
Yeah,
see.
like-
Okay.
They didn't really go into Uniswap much. It was more FTX and like
Okay.
what Uniswap could do that they're doing now. But yeah, I have lots of questions. So very, very excited.
Oh yeah, I think Phil, he mentioned FTX to me as well. So he might have some like insight there potentially too if you have questions.
Did you send the link to him or the invite to him?
Yeah, it was like a whole debacle. I had no idea how to do this properly. So I sent him like the iCloud one. And then he was like, I didn't get it in my email. And then I like created a Google Calendar one and then like sent it over to him. He's like, I didn't get the Zoom link. And I was like, okay, I texted him the Zoom link.
Here's
and he was
the
like,
link.
cool. But he has it in his calendar somewhere. I don't know what I did. I don't understand these things. Like I just want to like
Why they
shove a
don't
link in a
work.
calendar event and like, please just work.
Who is doing this in Web3? I want to know because I had to do the same thing for where Sharuz and I are talking on Wednesday. And I'm like, I don't have any system at all because I'm not doing anything in the world. And so I'm like just trying to figure out where the calendar stuff is anymore. Yeah, I wonder if anybody's
think-
doing any sort of
no,
like
we
coordination.
Definitely need
stuff,
a Web3 calendar.
yeah.
That'd be
Discord.
sweet.
Some Discord servers have like Sharuz, the little plugin you're using for internet camera Discord is cool. RSVP
Sessions?
scheduler.
Oh yeah.
I think so. Yeah, that's very helpful. But I'm imagining that, but like across even more mediums, that's just like very easy to say. You know, I want this again, and then like have it automatically fill up and then spawn itself when enough people have interest. Yeah, just calendars are very Web2.
Kind of a separate idea, but everybody knows Calendly, like the
Yeah.
thing where you can go and book somebody else's time. Somebody had the thought of porting that to Web3, where
Yeah.
you've got like auction
Yeah.
mechanics and stuff for certain time
Mhm.
slots.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So much to do. So fun.
Yeah, it seems like there's so much to build. It's insane. And like a lot, I don't know, I guess it's so exciting to see like all like these random revenue streams just popping up for creators in a way too. Like that auction for time, like what the heck? Like that's like, I don't know, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Weird.
Just wait till doodle squares are worth like $1 billion a pixel.
The initial one.
That's going to be that's the foundation of the entire creative economy. 500 by 500 one color squares.
Refractionalized.
Yeah,
Fractionalized till infinity.
exactly. Cool.
Till zero, I guess.
Yep. Till tomorrow then.
Yeah, I
Sweet.
think we did. We got into cool shit today. Good
We
job,
did.
everybody.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Think on Rolata. I'm starting to
No.
dislike it every time.
You don't have to force it.
I just think on it though. Just think on it.
It's just trial by fire. Just keep saying it and you'll find out what happens.
Rolata, trial by fire.
Wait, Sharuz, is that mug heat up on its own? It's
Yeah,
a robot?
I would never buy one of these, but my sister likes buying me stuff that she would make fun of me if I were to buy it myself. And then she'll tell other people like, "Oh, he's got this thing. What a dork." But yeah, it's a heated mug. I actually kind of love it. I wouldn't have paid for it myself,
Oh
That's
my
cool,
god.
yeah.
but it's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Your
That's a
sister's
really
brilliant.
good gag.
Yeah.
I mean, I
can't
hate
believe
it,
you
but I
have
also
that.
love it.
Heated mug. A built-in make fun gift. Good.
That's such a sibling thing. I should pass that along to, I don't know, my brother or my sister Alexis, because those two are always playing these kinds of games with each other. You have to, because you have to know the person pretty well to get them something that they would like and that they're not going to be like, I'm never going to use this. Yeah.
Get them an Ethereum wallet with a stupid name and they don't know how to use it, but you set it all up for them and then they don't know how to fix it. So they
I
have
spent
to be that
$300
identity.
getting you this wallet.
Use
for
it.
this
Set
name.
it up on their phone, the whole thing. That's the on-ramp to
Here's some
bad
stress.
gags.
Have fun.
.ngo. Perfect. All right. Bye.
Sure.
Till tomorrow.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.